You're the person people come to for advice. You read people well. You think before you speak. You've always prided yourself on being able to see through things, through people, before others do. So how do you explain what happened? How do you explain the fact that the person who misread you most completely, who manipulated you most effectively, who left you most confused about your own reality, somehow got further with you than anyone else ever had? You've probably told yourself it was a blind spot, a moment of weakness, that you were tired or stressed or just not paying attention. But that's not what the research says. The research says it was never a coincidence that they chose you, and it was never a flaw that let them in. Psychologists have identified a consistent pattern in who manipulation targets tend to be, and it directly contradicts the assumption most people make. The assumption is that manipulators look for weakness, low self-esteem, desperation, insecurity. And while those profiles are sometimes targeted, clinical research on coercive control and predatory social behavior tells a different story. The traits most consistently identified in repeated manipulation targets are high empathy, strong analytical thinking, a tendency toward fairness, and a deep reluctance to think badly of others without evidence. In other words, the qualities associated with emotional intelligence and intellectual integrity. The profile of the ideal target is not someone broken, it is someone capable. Here is the part that most people find genuinely difficult to absorb. Your intelligence, the same capacity that helps you navigate complexity, read nuance, and give people the benefit of the doubt, is not a shield against manipulation. Under the right conditions, it is an accelerant. This is not a paradox, it is a documented psychological phenomenon, and once you understand the mechanics behind it, the question stops being, how did I fall for this? And starts being, how is this specifically designed for someone like me? Because it was, not randomly, not opportunistically, deliberately. Reason 1, your empathy creates a blind spot. Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another person. It is one of the most sophisticated cognitive functions the human brain performs. It is also, under specific conditions, a liability. Research by psychologist Simon Baron-Cohen on empathy and social cognition demonstrates that highly empathetic individuals are significantly more likely to accept another person's stated emotional reality, even when it contradicts observable evidence. In practical terms, when someone tells you they are hurting, you feel it. When someone tells you they are misunderstood, you want to be the one who understands them. When someone presents themselves as a person who has been wronged, your empathy activates before your skepticism does. A skilled manipulator doesn't need to deceive your logic. They only need to engage your compassion first. Once that happens, your analytical mind begins working in their defense rather than your own.
Reason 2. Intelligent people rationalize better. Here is something cognitive science has demonstrated repeatedly. Intelligence does not reduce the frequency of irrational decisions. In many cases, it increases the sophistication of the justifications for them. Psychologist Jonathan Haidt's research on moral reasoning found that the human mind typically makes emotional decisions first and then constructs logical explanations afterward. This process, called post hoc rationalization, is more elaborate and convincing in people with stronger verbal and analytical abilities. What this means in the context of manipulation: when something feels wrong in a relationship, a highly intelligent person is better equipped to construct a compelling internal argument for why it actually isn't. They talk themselves out of their instincts more fluently. They find more reasons to stay, more explanations for the other person's behavior, more frameworks that make the unacceptable seem understandable. The intelligence that serves you in almost every other area of life becomes the mechanism that keeps you in situations your gut already identified as dangerous. Reason 3. Fairness becomes a weapon. People who value fairness tend to apply it universally. They extend the same reasonable doubt to others that they would want extended to themselves. They resist making judgments without sufficient evidence. They give second chances because they believe in human complexity. These are not naive qualities, they are ethical ones. But in the presence of someone who does not share those values, someone who interprets fairness as an invitation rather than a principle, they create a specific and repeatable vulnerability. Research on boundary violation patterns shows that individuals who score highly on measures of agreeableness and fairness orientation take significantly longer to identify and name mistreatment because they continue applying charitable interpretation long after the evidence has stopped supporting it. Your fairness is not the problem. The problem is the assumption that the person across from you operates by the same code. They don't always, and the ones who don't know how to find the ones who do. If this profile fits you, some of these will be uncomfortably familiar. You have stayed in situations longer than you should have, not because you didn't see the signs, but because you kept finding explanations for them. You have been told you're too sensitive, too analytical, or too in your head, usually by the person whose behavior prompted the analysis. You found yourself working harder to understand them than they ever worked to understand you. You gave the benefit of the doubt so many times that it stopped feeling like generosity and started feeling like a trap you built yourself. You are better at identifying when something is wrong in other people's relationships than your own. When the relationship ended, or when you finally named what it was, part of what hurt most was not the betrayal itself, but the realization of how long your own mind had been working against you. If three or more of those landed, you are not someone who is easily fooled. You are someone whose best qualities were identified and used without your knowledge. That is a fundamentally different thing, and the distinction changes everything about how you move forward. Understanding this doesn't mean becoming suspicious of everyone. It doesn't mean closing off the empathy or the fairness or the analytical generosity that define how you move through the world. It means knowing that those qualities have a value and that some people recognize that value before you've said a single word. The awareness itself changes the dynamic. You cannot be selected without your knowledge indefinitely once you understand the selection criteria. Leave a comment below. Was there a moment, looking back, where you knew something was wrong but your own reasoning talked you out of it? What did that sound like?